Right, can we just take a minute to condemn the absolute state of British media today, specifically the Daily Mirror, for this latest round of climate alarmism? You see, according to them, we're about to be scorched alive. Brace yourselves by temperatures of 22 degrees, where they highlight it in nice red colours. Apparently, so the colourblind can see it better. Yes, 22, not 40, not 50, 22 degrees Celsius. I mean, it's 22 degrees outside now, and there are horses just in the field grazing. So I'm about to go and do my duty for the animals of the world and warn these horses and sheep that they'd better fuck off inside pretty quick because it's 22 degrees outside. Run away, horses and sheep. You're going to burn. Oh, look, they don't give a shit. And you'd think, reading their headline, that East Anglia, where I live, was about to become the Sahara overnight. With the exact date this mini heatwave is set to hit Britain, they shriek, plastered over a giant deep red weather map, like we're moments away from spontaneous combustion. Now, here's the reality. They are quietly hoping you won't notice. It's been rainy. It's April. That's kind of the deal. It's going to get a bit warmer because of a high-pressure system. You know, basic meteorology, not Armageddon. Temperatures will hover around 20 to 22 degrees for a few days, mainly in the south and the east. Meanwhile, half the rest of the poxy country from Yorkshire to Dorset will barely scrape the high teens. And yet they're calling this a mini heat wave. Honestly, it sounds less like a weather event and more like the world's saddest Marvel spin-off. But of course, like clockwork, the usual left-aligned dimwits will be out in force screeching about climate change and how the net zero revolution can't come soon enough. What? Because it's summer? That's right. The Sunblock Brigade are out in full force because it's 22 degrees in May. Jesus Christ, what will we do? This isn't news. This is manufactured fear, textbook emotional manipulation. It's summertime. It's summertime every year and has been for centuries. Scary maps, exaggerated language, the full toolkit to keep you panicked and pliable, ready to swallow whatever new policy or carbon tax they're cooking up next. Or maybe blocking the sun out completely. Remember the video I did on that? And make no mistake, this is all part of the bigger scam. The more they convince that normal British spring weather is somehow extreme, the more they can fast track the same net zero policies that will cost you billions while making their corporate friends very rich indeed. It's absolutely pathetic, and frankly, the establishment media are looking more and more desperate pulling these stunts. So when you see headlines about heat waves at 21 degrees, just remember, it's not the planet that's heating up, it's the temperature of their lies.
Here's another juicy, giant-sized net zero and renewables scandal for you. They just keep on coming under Ed Miliband. So it turns out that the Drax power station, which I believe is in Nottinghamshire, is the biggest emissions producer in the whole of the UK. It produces more CO2 into the atmosphere than any other plant or any other power station in the UK. But the Drax power station is supposedly running on renewable fuels. And the reason for that is that it imports, it brings them in. We don't even produce them ourselves. It imports and burns 6.5 million tonnes of wood pellets every year. It used to run on locally produced coal that was produced 20, 30, 40 miles up the road in the various coal mines around Nottinghamshire. But now we import 6.5 million tonnes of wood pellets from Canada and the USA every year. And those wood pellets are made in part by chopping down giant trees in the Canadian forests and in the Californian forests. So we're going through the process of deforestation of ancient, beautiful trees, chopping those trees down, turning them into wood pellets, then putting them on ships, shipping them all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, driving them, presumably, or putting them on trains to the Drax power station, and then burning them, which is producing more CO2 into the atmosphere than any other power station in the UK. Does that sound like it makes any green or ecological or environmental sense whatsoever? Doesn't, does it? Let me make it even worse for you. The Drax power station made an enormous profit, £1.1 billion. But apparently it was given £1 billion worth of subsidies because it's renewable and because it's green. So we are paying and giving them subsidies for the privilege of them making huge profits, whilst at the same time not being in the least bit green, engaging in mass deforestation across North America and producing more CO2 than anyone else. And they just happen to be a very big donor to the Labour Party. Not a scandal at all. You tell me if that makes any fucking sense whatsoever, or is it just a scam?
Kidding me. Some sources in America are claiming that a nuclear weapons test in space could have been responsible for the blackouts, the power outages in Spain, Portugal and France. And yes, of course, they are blaming that it may have been Russia. And another US source is claiming that balloons, you know, what you blow up for your kid's party, well, yes, they are now classified as WMDs. Yes, I'm referring to what happened in Iraq here. Now, it's been almost 1 week since this incident across Europe unfolded, and there's been no real definitive explanation as to what has caused all of it. I'm saying temperature variations in the atmosphere. Some saying EMP attacks. Some even saying solar flares, which wouldn't be a bad shout, because in London, we've seen the Northern Lights about 20 times in a year, and that's supposed to be once in a fucking lifetime. We saw them 20 times last year alone. However, US officials say that the Cosmos 2553, which was launched into orbit days before Vladimir Putin ordered troops into Ukraine, is testing components for a Russian space weapon. And they're not ruling out nuclear space weapons. And this is where things get comical, because a report for the American Leadership and Policy Foundation has warned using a balloon as a WMD, weapon of mass destruction. It's a platform which could provide adversaries with a range of altitudes and payload options which would maximize offensive effects against the US. So, to summarize, if I've got this fucking correct here, they're saying that Russia may have used a balloon as a weapon of mass destruction across Europe as a test for what they could do against the US. I don't fucking understand this. I'm gonna go and have my second coffee, for fuck's sake.
So today is local election day, and far be it from me to tell people who they should be voting for, but I can give a few reminders of some of the things that Starmer has and hasn't done since he lied his way into number 10, just in case you're leaning towards Labour. Start with his manifesto, which is an irrefutable tenure of lies. Not a single promise he's made has come to fruition. Smash the gang was one of his catchy slogans. He'd like to yelp. What gangs have you smashed? We've still got hundreds of illegals coming in on the daily on their boats, being housed in four-star hotels. And if that weren't bad enough, Keir Starmer is now bribing landlords with 5 years rent and refurbishment fees to house these illegal migrants. He's going to call it the asylum seeker scheme. They're not seeking asylum. They're invading and flooding our once great land, which is part of a purposeful agenda. Fighting age males. They're not asylum seekers. So we're being gaslit for starters. It's not the truth. He's choosing his words wisely. And I just hope they don't fall on naive ears and you don't buy into his bullshit. But by now you should realise that he is a sociopath and he doesn't care for the British public. Take the disdain for the elderly, for example. He can pump money into foreign affairs, into foreign aid. How many people lost relatives last winter because he slashed their winter allowance? How many people's loved ones are now dead because of that? What about the grooming gang cover-up? Why no national inquiry? Because he's part of the problem. He's part of the cover-up. He's complicit. If there is a national inquiry, him and Jess Phillips go to jail. So do you want to vote for somebody that sweeps paedophilia on an industrial scale under the carpet? These aren't victimless crimes. We're talking about thousands of British children that have been affected by these grooming gangs, and they will be affected for the rest of their life. They get a life sentence. Do you want to be voting for somebody that covers up paedophilia? Remember, he was head of the CPS. How many times do you think Jimmy Savile landed on Starmer's desk? He showed Jimmy Savile a blind eye. Savile went on to commit some of the most atrocious crimes the country has ever seen. Wow. What about the Southport massacre? When Starmer addressed the nation and he channeled his energy and anger towards the non-existent far right, the people that were genuinely outraged and bereft by the massacre of young children in Southport. Now, Starmer knew within an hour that he was a revert terrorist. He wasn't a Welsh rugby playing choir boy. He was an Islamist with Al-Qaeda manuals in his bedroom and poison and sinister plans to commit atrocities. He knew that. He gaslit the nation and jailed people for verbalising their anger and frustration on social media in written format. What a scumbag. The list is literally endless with Starmer. You need to make up your mind and weigh up which way you want the country to go, who you want your neighbours to be. How can you vote for somebody that you simply can't trust? How can you vote for somebody that hates you? If you vote for Starmer today, you are part of the problem. He is the worst PM in history. He will go down as the biggest scumbag we've ever seen in number 10. Do you want to be remembered as the person that put him there? I'll leave that for you to decide.
Darkest truth hidden from us.
I don't understand why we have to pay to live on a planet we were born on. You didn't sign a contract when you took your first breath. You didn't agree to rent space on Earth. So why does every part of survival, food, water, land, come with a price tag? And here's the real question. Who are we even paying? Who decided they owned the land, the water, the resources? Who stood up one day and said, this all belongs to me and you owe me for existing? Water covers most of the planet, falls from the sky, and is essential for life. Yet somehow people are dying of thirst. Instead of wasting billions on war, we could build desalination plants and give fresh water to everyone. The technology exists, but do we use it? No, because if people could take care of themselves, they wouldn't be controlled. That's the truth. Scarcity is a lie. There's enough food, enough land, enough resources for everyone. But if people weren't desperate, governments, corporations, and banks would lose power. So they manufacture struggle. They make sure you're always working, always paying, always needing. You're not just paying to live. You're paying to stay in your cage.
The governing body of football in the UK have ruled that transgender women will no longer be able to play in women's football in England.
The FA's new policy will come into force on June the 3rd. That's a big story and a big change. And, of course, that's down to the Supreme Court too.
It's down to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court were empowered by Donald Trump coming in, and one of those first executive orders that he signed on that first 24 hours was biological sex matters, and you're going to get men out of women's sports. Thank you, Donald Trump, because that has come here.
All right, everybody, how are we doing? We are in Dublin, here protesting the mass immigration invasion into Ireland. And behind me, look who you've got. Sinn Féin against racism, anti-Irish traitors, the whole lot of them. And it's disgusting in front of the GPO, where Irish men and Irish women give their lives for Irish freedom. And now look at Sinn Féin protesting people like us who are against the plantation, the invasion of Ireland. Shame on Sinn Féin. Look at the mirror. Look at the signs. Sinn Féin against racism. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Look at them. And in front of the GPO, Sinn Féin standing outside the GPO protesting against Irish nationalists, people who love their country, who care about their country. They want Ireland invaded by non-Irish. Brits out, Africans in. That's Sinn Féin's motto. Please share this video. Get a real Irish national YouTuber. This is our party YouTuber. The Irish Patriot. Get the Irish Patriot YouTuber. Down below in the description. We are in Dublin. Tens of thousands of Irish people, Irish nationalists, have turned out to oppose mass immigration. And look at them, Sinn Féin supporting immigration, supporting the invasion of Ireland. Disgusting. Expose Sinn Féin. Anti-Irish traitors. Anti-Irish traitors. Sinn Féin are traitors! Sinn Féin are traitors! Sinn Féin are traitors! Traitors, the whole lot of them! Sinn Féin anti-Irish traitors! Share this video with all your friends and family. God bless you all.
Who would want to serve Great Britain now? Today it was announced that armed Met police officer who shot and killed gangland triggerman Chris Cabba is facing a misconduct trial. The Independent Office for Police Conduct said that they'd acknowledged the strong interest from the black community. Well, Chris Cabba as you will be seeing on your screens right now, is videoed here shooting a man in a London nightclub, OK? And I believe that we might be able to show you what happened when he was driving his car at police officers like a weapon before he was shot. So following that, the officer was named publicly, which put him and his family potentially at risk. We are not naming him on this programme. He was put on trial for murder, something that could have cost him his liberty for life. A jury of his peers cleared him after just 3 hours of deliberation. Hundreds of armed police officers handed in their guns in protest at one of their colleagues facing a life sentence simply for doing his job. Now that same man, after all that, they couldn't get him. They couldn't get him by putting a target on his back with his name. They couldn't get him by trying to do him for murder. So what they got now? Well, they're going to make him do this misconduct hearing, aren't they? So I think that's absolutely shocking. Prison officers are attacked by rampant Islamist terrorist Hashim Abidi, the man who helped build the Manchester Arena bomb. Now, prison officers are saying that they need stab vests, they need pepper spray, they maybe even need tasers. It seems like common sense to me. They fear a summer of violence from especially the ever-increasing Islamist population in prison. Well, they're not getting it, by the looks of things. In light of what we've seen recently, if one of those prison officers had accidentally broken the Manchester Arena terrorist's wrist while trying to wrestle him off one of their colleagues, would they not find themselves facing an assault charge in court? Police, soldiers and prison officers, they're on the front line. But they put their lives on their line to protect Britain. But Britain isn't protecting them at the moment, is it? And when you see things like this, a man dancing and doing gun symbols outside a migrant hotel in a quiet English village with a war memorial and the St. George's flag behind him, is it any wonder some people feel as though Britain is not worth fighting for?
I had this question off of my wife's nan in 2012, probably, when I was arrested and when I was released, I come home, I walked in, she said, "It's too late, why are you fighting?" And I think if everyone had that attitude previously to us, we'd all be speaking German. And I think that when you look at what people sacrificed and gave and fought for, when you say, when is it too late? It's never too late. So long as you continue to fight, it's never too late. We are in the biggest battle we could ever face. We have the biggest problems ahead of us we could ever face. We are against the best funded ideology we could ever face. We are literally David versus Goliath. It is us versus them. It is total control and taking of our freedoms versus people who want freedom.
I've played these games before. Major cancer breakthrough as NHS launches a 5-minute super jab that can fight 15 types of disease. That sounds trustworthy, doesn't it? Let's have a look. So currently, the treatment known medically as Nivolumab can take up to an hour via an IV drip. Officials also believe the rollout could save over a year's worth of treatment time for patients annually, which will see them spend less time in hospital while freeing up staff capacity. I wonder why they'll be spending less time in the hospital. It's because they'll fucking be 6 feet under, mate. It's estimated around 1,200 patients in England per month could benefit from cancer, for cancer, including skin, bowel, stomach, kidney, bladder and esophagus. Experts said that the groundbreaking jab was significant advancement in cancer care and would transform lives. Okay, let's see what else it says. So it comes amid a disturbing rise in cancers, including skin and bowel in under 50s, which has baffled doctors around the globe. It's probably all the shit that you put in our food and all the shit you put in our air. Anyway, go and choose it. I know you're probably going to get people here that's like, I trust this one. Okay, we'll see about this one.
Unbelievable. So Labour's been in power for what, 5 minutes? And they've already blown through £171 billion. Yes, 171 billion, like it's monopoly money. Meanwhile, they're still going on about a £22 billion black hole that they invented to justify taxing the life out of you and I. Turns out the only black hole is between Rachel Reeves's ears, your politically incorrect common sense commentator here, and it's time to break down what Labour's really been up to. Forget fiscal responsibility. This is straight up economic vandalism with a vegan face. Let's have a little look at where your money's actually going. Spending so far under Labour, public sector pay rises 9.4 billion. Carbon capture projects, 22 billion, literally the exact size of the black hole they made up. Support to Ukraine, 15 billion, that's 10 billion in weapons and military training, 5 billion in non-military aid. Overseas climate aid, 11.6 billion. Yes, they're still sending billions abroad to help everyone but their own citizens. Defence spending, 56.9 billion for this year, up from last year, aiming for 2.5% of GDP. NHS pay increases, 1 billion for junior doctors only. Train drivers deals, 675 million, and they still want to strike, folks. Extra borrowing this year alone, 151.9 billion. That's 14.6 billion more than expected. That's right, 14.6 billion more. Add it all up, and you've got a government spending binge totaling more than 170 billion pounds, and we're only getting started. And yet Labour's crying about a 22 billion black hole. You spent 22 billion pounds on capturing carbon dioxide and pretending it's going to save the planet. And now you're saying we can't afford tax cuts. We've got pensioners choosing between heating and food, and you're funding climate change conferences in Uganda. You're still giving away 11.6 billion in climate aid, 15 billion to Ukraine, and billions more in foreign aid and migrant hotel bills, while shutting down our own energy, then buying oil and gas from Norway. From the same North Sea we won't drill in, at triple the cost. Honestly, this is economic policy written by a gender studies department. Rachel Reeves calls this stability. This isn't a government. This is a financial demolition crew. Debt at 2.64 trillion pounds, borrowing at record levels, taxes at 38.3% of GDP, the highest since World War II. And what do you get? Closed services, more strikes, more crime, and a lecture on pronouns from a minister in a Tesla. So here's the truth. Labour didn't find a black hole. They dug one, threw your future into it, and then set fire to the shovel. They're not here to build Britain. They're here to loot it, lecture you, and leave the mess behind, just like they always do. If you're done being ripped off by climate fanatics in red rosettes, share this video, follow and subscribe on the link below to support and join the rebellion. Because if we don't fight now, there won't be a Britain left to save.
So everybody's freaking out because our American ports are beginning to run a little dry. But what nobody's telling you is the reason why they're looking dry. Because they used to be flooded with Chinese exports. And if our ports here in America are looking dry, could you imagine how the ports in China are looking? Look up the images of all of the ships and all of the cargo containers that are in Shanghai's port alone. You don't have to look at all China. Look at Shanghai ports. Thousands amongst thousands of ships that are disabled because they have nowhere to ship containers to. Tens of thousands of cargo containers that are filled with products that now the Chinese are having to take those items out of the containers to try to salvage some of those goods if possible. But guess what? The United States is still selling our exports. Because unlike China, 18 countries have already come to agreements with the United States on this tariff policy. And we are still working on figuring out all the little details with all of these other countries that are coming in. But how many people, other than maybe South Africa, maybe, have agreed to China's tariffs and to officially trading with China? You may get a few here and there, if that. But everybody that China has gone to has said, we're sorry, we cannot consume as much as America consumes. But on the contrary, other nations are telling us we can make what China makes. So we're still winning.
We need to block out the sun. And it turns out that blocking out sunlight is actually a good thing for the planet. And the great news is, this is now happening in the UK. The private company Aria are going to spend £50 million in just the next few weeks and start blocking out sunlight immediately. Apart from helping to save the planet, blocking out sunlight could also help the UK to deal with its increasingly hot summers. Unfortunately, conspiracy theorists like Joe Rogan have been spreading misinformation about cloud seeding for many years, leading many people to be anxious and worried about using chemicals to block out sunlight or seeding clouds or chemicals in the sky in order to do good things for Mother Earth. But the truth is, we only have about 2 years left to try and save the planet from the 1.5 degree threshold that would mean the end of human life on this planet, and possibly the end of all life as we know it. So instead of being frightened of climate manipulation technology, we should be welcoming it, because what we should really be scared of is climate change. Great minds like Bill Gates have already pointed out that if every country used this technology, we could bring down global temperatures by as much as 5% and protect ourselves from this.